Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Director's Choice Godfest that is coming up on Monday, soon, very soon. So, the Director's Choice Godfest can be almost thought of as a way to close out 2018 because we want to end 2017 on a high note, hopefully, and also maybe spend all that wonderful Christmas money if you got iTunes cards, etc. Unfortunately, Gung Ho is giving us one of the least tasty Godfests to date because we will have only 5 times rates for only specific Godfest exclusives, but they will be excluding things like Cotton and Cami. So you can actually see this is the whole roster of the 30 Godfest exclusives that are featured. So they have removed some of the lesser cards, but they've also removed 2 of the big prizes at the same time, as well as having 5 times rates. And while they will give these cards fully they'll be evolved once and fully awoken, is that really worth spending stones on? Because they come out level 50 in their second evolution form. So you save a tiny bit of resources, a tiny bit of evolution materials, a couple Tamadras, but that's all you're getting. You're not getting pluses, which are a bit more valuable, I feel, for the most part. And for those collectors, they want to have every evolution form of a card. So if you roll, say, an evolved Ilm, and it's your first Ilm, you will never have the base form Ilm in your monster book, and some people will not like that for collection purposes. So basically, I do an S through D ranking system with up and down arrows to indicate if things have changed or shifted. And I do want to mention before I go through my Pantheon tier list, which I have modified slightly, is that power creep in Puzzle & Dragons is actually quite a healthy thing, because not only does it give us new content to play through, but in the case of releasing new cards and evolutions, they tend to recycle older ones back into existence because they give them a new evolution with new awakenings, new powerful abilities, so on and so forth. So because of that thought in mind, you never want to sell a single copy of one card, because you never know if they're going to receive an amazing evolution that turns them into a monstrous powerhouse thing. So like, for example, Ganesha was kind of useless for the most part when it first came out. It was like, yeah, you get a bit more coins, but do we really need more coins? Not so great. But then when their evolution came out and gave them the ability to grant bonus rank experience, suddenly Ganesha became one of the most desirable cards in the whole game. So with that in mind, if it's your first time getting a card, don't sell it. Like, keep it, sit on it. It's going to hopefully grow into something big and powerful in the future. And again, with all these rankings and any tier list across any game made by any person, I always try and take them with a grain of salt because it's just a good starting point. It's a good talking point. Like, yes, it can vary from individual to individual based on what they have at their disposal. So again, take all these with a grain of salt. And one last thing I want to point out is that I did have an interesting conversation with a friend last night who also plays Pad, and we basically come to the conclusion that only a few specific Pantheon cards are actually relevant at this point in time. The rest, like, sure, they're nice and they can do things, but when you're pushing through endgame content, you need to min-max your team in every way possible. There's very few that are actually valuable at this point in time. It's mostly Godfest exclusives and rare collab cards that are dominating the top meta teams. And I feel that's a little unfortunate because Pantheon cards are the most common, but again, if we're not using them in those endgame scenarios as much, it's not as valuable. So because of that, some things have been demoted. So Haku and Kushinari Hime are demoted slightly because they're just losing strength, and I'll explain why in a moment. As well as the 3 heroes of Wukong, Sonata, and Andromeda being kind of, I guess, put back into A+. Maybe they'll go down further. I don't know. But again, the thing is, it's only really the top that we really consider at this point in time. So anything below, yes, it can have merits and value, but it's really just these sets here that are kind of being used at this day and age, which I think is a downside because there's so many good cards out there, possibly. So Haku and Kushinari Hime. So I want to focus on Kushinari Hime first. So she's still an amazing leader. She still can tackle lots of endgame content. She still has good damage potential and survivability. But the problem is the no Skyfall clause is actually seen as a liability in some ways. And that is because you're kind of capping your damage based on your given board. You can't get lucky and Skyfall into additional combos and ramp up your multiplier further. And because of that, Kushinari Hime is going to struggle through the newest content that has so much health because you can't get that little bit of extra oomph if you've set up a board and pray as Skyfall matches. So that is a bit of a downside. And then I know there are lots of people who will argue that damage control is important, but is it really that important nowadays? Because when Kushinari Hime first came out, we did not have follow-up attack, the Box Awakening. Do we have Fujin? I don't even know, maybe. But the point of the matter is we didn't have many tools or solutions to counter damage control scenarios. But now we have follow-up attack and all resolves are negated. We have Box to penetrate through damage voids and Fujin to avoid the absorption mechanics. So damage control is really needed in this day and age. It's a lot lower than it used to be, say, 6 months ago or a year ago. So that's why Kusanagi is somewhat on the decline, whereas Anubis, even though he has less survivability, his damage ceiling is so much higher. He can do things that Kusanagi could not. And then Wukong, Yamato, and Andromeda all have been dropped down accordingly, mostly because they were overvalued perhaps before. Like, I always liked the hero gods. I found them very powerful as pantheons, but we're finding it difficult to actually utilize them very efficiently because they only have 1/7 combo awakening, which means other cards like Nohime and Uranus have way more damage output potential, so we want to use those over them, as well as the orb changers being helpful, but then again, skill inheritance and other orb changers are still out there. So because of all those, it's hard to really justify their usage on endgame teams. You can say Wukong and Sonata are good for farming purposes because they have 3 skill boosts, but we have a farmable Whale Door who has 5. Again, the point is, like, they're getting replaced by better options out there. And then the Greco-Roman 3 Pantheon, which I did write about in a previous article there, which you can take a look. But the general gist is that their color absorption void mechanic is powerful. It does help in niche scenarios. Not so much at the moment, but maybe in the future we'll have more applications. But it's really Kronos and Uranus that are the 2 strongest because they have 3 7 combo awakenings, which means they do 8 times damage for themselves when they hit 7 or more combos, which will just obliterate most content. There's only really a couple, like Ideal, Enra, and I think those 2 at this point in time in North America who have 3 7 combo awakenings. So now we come to the Godfest exclusive tier list. And I haven't made any changes because nothing has really changed. Like, the same teams are still around for the most part. King of Fighters introduces new things, but I don't think they're really going to make a splash, so to speak, so things don't necessarily change up. So no changes there, but we want to look at what pantheons are featured. Oh, there are no pantheons. That's okay. I just keep it for redundancy and for formatting later. Super Carnival. So the Director's Choice Godfest will overlap with the Super Carnival, but unfortunately, the Super Carnival is 2 times rates, not a typo, 2 times rates for the Wise Dragons and the Legendary Heroes, who are quite lackluster for the most part. So maybe someone doesn't understand what the definition of super means. Maybe we're not using it correctly. I'll say this is a carnival, not a super carnival. Now, putting this all together. So basically, I just took that Godfest exclusive tier list and simply just cut out the cards that are not featured. So as you can see from here versus up here, like, there are Godfest exclusives missing across, like, basically all ranks, but we're also missing Cammy and Cotton. And Cammy and Cotton are some of the big chases because we're really just chasing the S tier for the most part of those Godfest exclusives that are really going to help propel our game forward. So by missing 2 of the especially newer ones, it's going to limit our ability to really capitalize on this Godfest. So in conclusion, I feel that this is a very poor lineup for a Godfest overall, especially when we're thinking that it's going to be the last one of 2017, because it has only 5 times rates. We're missing 2 of the best Godfest exclusives, and there's no bonus rates or no pantheons. Nothing else is featured. And the collateral bonus is awoken and evolved once for Godfest exclusives. So that's not going to help us out at all for terms of the collateral pluses, etc. So that is a downside. Now, I guess perhaps we all can rest assured that our Christmas money will be safe. If you got some iTunes gift cards, for instance, because this is not a good Godfest, you can save it for something else. But regardless, let me know if you plan on rolling this Godfest in the comments below. Hopefully you'll have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures, the best of times in 2017, and happy puzzling.